Hello and welcome to the first episode of The Clutch Kick. I am one of your presenters, Greg Merriman, 2014 Winter Olympian, turned pro drifter, as people like to call me, and this is my co-host.
I'm EG. I am from Canberra, and I'm part of Team Red Stage. I'm also a national judge in Drift Challenge Australia. Um, out of things to say, I don't know how much
All
I
right,
need to put into there.
all right. So the purpose of me and EG sort of starting this up is to give Australian drifters a little bit more of a media platform to help put themselves out onto social media. A lot of our guys, I feel like personally, don't do enough using social media. So we're using it to try and help encourage people to do more. We're going to try and do interviews with people at events and just do short interviews going up onto a YouTube channel, onto Facebook, and we are also going to attempt to try and do weekly or bi-weekly podcasts similar to this one.
Yeah, be discussions or opinions on things that have happened, recent events, maybe even just uh, general discussion about drifting, like techniques and other sort of things that might be interesting.
As well as things like the state of drifting in different states around the country. Uh, Similar to us having issues in New South Wales currently, being able to access tracks that allow us to use more than second gear. We'll sort of get into all that sort of stuff in future episodes. Today's episode, we decided we'd start on something that is fairly close to both our hearts, and we thought we'd sort of preview and look back upon Drift Challenge Australia. Last year was my first year travelling interstate, and I did that alongside the Drift Challenge Australia series. And as EG said in his intro, he has been a long time judge in that series,
Yeah, almost from the start.
almost from the start.
Almost. Yeah. I did get asked to judge from the start, but because of the way that Luke Fink wanted the series to go, he wanted judges consistently there for each round. But for one of the rounds on the first year, unfortunately, I was going to be in Japan, so I had to turn him down. But from the third round, I've been consistently judging, except for times when I haven't been available, just because I've had other commitments.
How dare you be selfish? You need to be there.
Uh,
So, so this year has been pretty much announced as of today. The three rounds are locked in. Luke announced earlier in the year or late last year that he was looking at moving to a summer series for 2018-19 if it happens. So he has shortened the season for multiple reasons. So we are looking at Mount Gambier as of February, 3-day event down there. I think that's the third year running down there on the streets of
Gambia, yeah.
uh, down there at Valley Lake.
Yeah, that's it. Third year. First year was absolutely insane. Second year was really cool as well because they made the track a bit wider, so you could actually do a little bit more things. So the third year, I think, should even be even better.
Yeah, there is talk that Luke is working on trying to widen the track in a few other spots. People are questioning how he can actually widen it, but after a chat with him, he's more looking at trying to remove a couple of the barriers that are in spots where only the front of the car should be, not the rear of the car. So if you do make a mistake, you can't really come off the track in those spots, particularly as you transition over the crest at sort of the beginning of your run. You'll actually be able to see that outside clip. That was probably my scariest point of the whole track all weekend. Is you sort of throw it in over the top of that crest completely blind, and if you stay in throttle, you sort of sail out to the track edge and shouldn't hit the wall.
Yeah,
And if you get off the throttle, you kind of hit the wall. And lucky for me, I didn't go the first year because some of the things that I did last year, I'm pretty sure would have found me in the fence.
yeah, it's a
Uh,
bit narrower, but it is going over the crest is probably one of the coolest feelings ever. I think it really reminds you of Nishi, which you haven't been to, but I really recommend that you go to.
Yeah, there's there's a few people claiming that there are tracks in this country with bigger elevation changes, but I don't think any track in the country rises and falls as quickly as Mount Gambier does. I think there are tracks like South Circuit has, probably a similar rise in sort of gradient to Mount Gambier, what it has, but I don't think any track has that up and then sudden drop off the other side the way that
No.
the street course at Mount Gambier has, and I think that's what makes it, truly unique.
Yeah, just popping over the crest. It looks cool as a judge. It feels amazing as a driver. It floats over. Like you accelerate, you get your self sorted, go up and you flick over the top of the hill, and that's one of the coolest feelings. It's like a roller coaster.
Yeah, it really is. Even though I think my bowels were held fairly tight all weekend every time I hit that corner. So after round one, we have a little bit of a break and we roll into Tasmania as of the 26th and 27th of May, which is a good little gap, I think, to have in there for everybody to try and get geared for Tasmania and actually find the budget for the mainlanders to try and get down there. That was my first ever interstate event for me last year, so I went big all the way down onto the boat. But I think that has probably been, on par with Mount Gambier for me as one of the coolest events, just because I think everything drift is bigger in Tasmania.
Yeah, Tasmanians are pretty passionate about drifting. They actually think that they would be really good to actually get them to come over and enter some of the events over here, but the cost of the boat is being quite a lot, I guess. And there's not that much employment in Tasmania, which is a shame, but it makes it difficult for them to come over, which sucks because, there's some pretty cool guys over there.
Yeah, I think what I found, considering I spent half the weekend with a broken car, was that they have the best culture when it comes to just jumping in, giving a hand, and getting cars back out on track. I know I was there till 4 a.m. trying to get a gearbox back into my car to get up and running the next day, and there were guys in there doing motor swaps and all sorts of crazy stuff, where other events up here, most guys chuck in the towel and head home and aren't too fussed upon it and just sort of wait for the next event.
Yeah, that's really disappointing when I see that sort of thing happen. So they should try and. I mean, I can understand that if they have really severe issues, but it's nice that it looks really impressive when they do try and they make such a big effort and they hang around at least and watch the rest of the event. But yeah, it's disappointing when people sort of have one small issue and just pack up and leave.
Yeah. I think also Tasmania was the first time I got the vibe of national drifting feeling like what it may have during the Drift Australia days. You're in proper V8 supercar pit area. The crowd comes through at lunchtime and you push your cars out into the pit lane and everybody gets to come up close to them. There's a good crowd. The track's prepped pretty much perfectly, immaculately clean. The facilities are great. Bloody can't spoke of the England today. So I think that has to be one of my favourite. Plus the boat trip is always interesting with a few interstate guys and getting to meet everybody before you get to the event, because most guys are on the same boat on the way over to.
Yeah, it can sometimes get pretty loose on the boat as well. But
I found out that, not me personally, but some people were threatened with Spirit of Tasmania jail, and I didn't realize I had a lock up on the boat. So that's always good information to have.
I didn't know that either, but I heard of some wild parties that they've had in the past.
Yeah, because a lot of people don't want to spend money on getting a room, so it's easier just to stay up all night.
Yeah, or get drunk enough so they don't feel the couch.
Yeah, basically.
But the other thing about going over in the boat is when you actually get off, all these race cars drive off the boat and they drive onto the normal street and they head off onto the track with normal traffic. So I kind of experienced that last year because I did drive over there, but um, I think we had to wait for some reason. I can't remember why. So everyone else drove off, and we had to wait at right outside the boat for something to happen. I'm not sure what. I think maybe I didn't have headlights or something, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, last year I got that too. I was worried about how much E85 I had in the car, so
Oh,
I
sorry, it
sort of
wasn't last year. Yeah, it was the year before,
you
I
would have
think.
been you
Yeah,
would have been the first year.
yeah. No, the second year.
Yeah. Yeah, and last year I found out very quickly that it was really dumb of me to forget my sunglasses because I smashed my windscreen on the trailer on the way down to Tassie, and then you head in a pretty much perfectly southeast direction,
Yep.
and that's exactly where the sun's rising at 6 a.m.
Yep.
So that was an horrendous drive, not to mention the fact that I have a stupid twin plate in the car. So compared to last year, the notable round missed out is Calder Park, which disappoints me a lot. This year last season was my first time getting to go down to Calder, and I thought it was going to be a little bit more of a ghetto event than what it ended up being. I looked at it and sort of thought, oh, they've sort of marked out this course on a already built track, and I thought, oh, it might be a little bit rough and not so much fun, but that has to be one of the best, most fun entries that I got to do last year. But yeah, sadly, that's a notable miss for this year. I think just track hire costs and all that were getting too much for the number of entrants entering those events.
Yeah, it was pretty expensive from what I heard, and I think there was a lot of difficulty in actually securing a pleasant date, a nice date anyway, something that was suitable for everyone.
Yeah.
So it seemed to clash with other things, or it'd be close to other events, and it would just mean that no one would turn up. So, but otherwise, you had fun there?
Yeah, I definitely thought it was a fun event. It was a slightly different layout to what they had run previous years. I forget that you weren't there. That was one of the
No,
rounds you missed it last season.
no.
Slightly different layout to previous seasons where they had us missing what was traditionally the first clip on the right-hand side and just had us do a massive flick into the outside clip on the left. And
Okay.
there was dirt put in a funny place that Mitch and Luke weren't all that happy about.
Dirt.
Yeah, where the wall was right next to the grass that you guys were using previous years as the first outside clip using a wall before you drove up the bank.
Yep.
So so as you came in there, I guess they had swept the track for, if anybody's seen it, the Super Cheap Auto ad where the burnout cars are on Octane Island or whatever, and they're doing big smoky burnouts down the bank. That was, I think, only like a week or two prior to us going down there because there was these massive skid marks along the bank, and I thought Luke had gone down there and done some testing, and I was like, we're not seriously driving up there, are we? And he's like, nah, that was some commercial. But I think they had swept the track and they had left it right where that outer clip was supposed to be.
Oh, really?
So that sort of got bumped, but they gave her some much faster run up for a big flick in there. So I thought that was heaps of fun. I think I missed it and overshot it about 50 to 60 times that weekend. I had no front or rear bar thanks to that. So that was fun, but sadly that round will be missed. And then we roll straight into the final round up at Archerfield Drift Park that is run by Luke on the 11th of August. And then the following weekend will be Cash Kings again. It's a shame that it's not on the same weekend like it was this year. Makes it a little bit easier, but I think, again...
I think that's to do with availability.
Yeah, Luke's, I think, worked hard in the background to try and secure back-to-back days, but couldn't manage to do that, and I think the best he could do was to have...
consecutive weekends.
Consecutive weekends in hope that people can score cheap flights home and cheap flights back. Yeah. I'm sure...
Or you just stay there the week.
Yeah,
go to the Gold Coast. There's lots of fun things to do there.
Yeah, I don't know what the clubs you go to are, but I hang out at Movie World. So that should be another massive event. Hopefully, the final round of DCA pulls as many people as the Cash Kings event. The Cash King event was probably one of the most successful events that was actually run last year. It didn't have the highest entrance, but I think it was probably the most successful all round.
Yeah, yeah, it was really good.
Uh,
So they should do that more often around the country.
yeah, I find it funny that people are reluctant to pay $350 to go skid a custom, like a really cool, beautiful track like Mount Gambier, but hey, you can drop $500 to be potentially knocked out of a competition and not get a crazy amount of track time for the chance at winning, 10K as the winner. That side of things has slightly blown my mind because all I've heard over the years is I want track time, I want track time, I want track time,
Yeah.
and then hey, you have a chance to win 10K. Oh, here's $500. I'm in for that.
Yeah.
I found that kind of funny, but I don't know how much you've seen on Facebook, but it looks like Luke's done some more things to the park.
I did see a post, but I didn't look at it that carefully. So I'm not sure what did they do.
So he's pushed back down that front main straight area when you sort of come through, I guess, the drift bowl area that sort of runs along the pit area with all the walls. He's pushed back that wall that sort of tightens right back up onto you as you hit the front straight in front of the canteen area. And I believe that there's going to be a ripple strip put in where the wall was existing.
Okay.
And the walls just further back. So if you really do make a mistake, so the existing line will be really similar. You could, depending on how high I think he goes with the ripple strip, you could probably sort of bounce over the ripple strip, set yourself up for a straighter line, and really snap down into that bottom hairpin.
Yep.
But I think he's done it purely for safety. One of the times I was up there, T managed to find the wall, but she was riding in a seat where she had like 15 cushions behind her, and there was many marks along that wall. So I think that was one of the big reasons for pushing that back. Even though I don't think that wall itself claimed too many cars during the DCA weekend the last time we were up there. I think most of them were claimed on that section in front of the pit area. So that's where the series stands for the 2018 season.
Yeah.
And then
there's
Luke,
a summer series, isn't there?
yeah, and then Luke's talking about rolling into a summer series if entrants this year are better than previous years. As you know, he has struggled a little bit with numbers in recent times. I think the move away from Victoria has potentially been a smart one. I think. Well, I think Vic Drift has an amazing thing going down there.
Yeah. I think it is because it has, from what I've heard, it is the most expensive, and because there is so much drifting available there, they sort of don't need another competition there, or it's just it costs the drivers there too much money to actually enter in everything, so they kind of need everything to be more spaced out. So they're already oversaturated, I think.
Yeah, exactly. I think each driver only has a certain amount of money they're willing to blow in a year, and I think this year Vic Drift is doing I think a 6-round series this year. It might only be it might be a 5, and they're returning to Winton for the first time in a while as one of their rounds of competition. So I think that'll be an interesting one for them, because I think there's been a call out for them to return to Winton for competition. So that should be good for them. But again, for an event like DCA to head back down there, it's just not. No, they're running a 6-round series.
Okay.
So for a national round to go down there and expect some drivers from there to fill the numbers, it's just not. It really isn't realistic unless something is different or special. But when you run a competition like theirs and you're running 6 different tracks for 6 different rounds, it's hard to expect those guys to sort of jump in unless you bring something really new and really fancy, which I know was in the works last year, but ended up being one of those things that sadly couldn't get over the line. So that's where that is. Hopefully some numbers for the summer series, but I guess we'll wait and see. So with Mount Gambier coming up, I think there's at the moment they're struggling for numbers, but typical drifters. Hopefully we see them all jump in at the last minute. Runner up from last year's national round, Blake Patterson, is talking about coming. Not talking about coming is a bit up in the air. Blake is, I think, in pretty much every highlight video that anybody managed to get the 2 runs where he did spectacular things. He managed.
Spectacular. That's good wording.
He managed to totally bin his car on the very first run of his weekend after a complete freshen up, fresh body kit, fresh paint. I remember coming back down into.
It's not unusual for Blake.
I remember coming back into the pits after that had happened, and Luke had come down with the forklift that he was using for all those Armaco barriers, and the front chassis rails, one was here and the other was up like this, and Luke just came in with the forklift, pushed it back down, and Blake's crew ran off to town to try and find a radiator that would sort of find its position between the rails before any of that would happen. But amazingly, he managed to qualify first, even ahead of all of us who had driven on the Friday. He managed to pull out number 1 qualifier. Somehow, I'm not sure how those guys pieced that car together back in time to actually do qualifying and for him to get comfortable, but he managed to do that. Yeah. And then he managed to end up in the final battle and in the final run of the weekend put it into the fence.
Yeah, that was really disappointing. He was feeling killer that whole competition, and he binned it. It looked like he almost drove it into the wall.
I'm not sure. I think at some stage we're definitely going to get Blake on here because he has a great mind for this sort of stuff, and he probably doesn't even know himself why he managed to shut down in those funny positions that he shut down in.
I did speak to him afterwards, actually. He said that he thought when in the battle before that it was really against him, so he thought he had to pull something out of the hat just for that final run, and he just pushed it too far. Like he was on point the whole time anyway, so he really didn't need to push it any extra, but he did, so that's what happened.
So do you think in those sort of situations us as drivers should be trying to run spotters, or do you think it's something that
you should run spotters? Yeah, definitely.
Or should be more organic, and you sort of go out there with none of that and just send it?
No, definitely you should run spotters. You should run spotters that would give you the correct information, because one of the issues is that you can have a spotter and they'll just say that was good, but how do they know what's good or bad? You need to have a spotter that's in the right spot or has an understanding of what the judges want, and even as well, they need to be able to tell you what you need to know to get better. So they need to have that communication level with you, so they'll tell you in whichever way you need to that this is what you need to do,
and not blow smoke up your pipe telling you how fantastic you are every run, I guess.
Yeah, pretty much. That happened to a few guys there, and it makes it difficult because their mate will tell them that they did a really good run and have no idea why the judges were so against you, and the driver will come to the judges all hot and bothered, and then we'll have to explain to them, and usually it's a point that they did not see. The spotter did not see, and we'd have to explain, that section was, it was fine. This other section that you thought the spotter thought you might have done well, not done well on, it was not good, but that wasn't the worst point. The worst point was something totally different, and you didn't even see it, and that's why.
I guess the beautiful thing about DCA from what I found last year was that at no point were the viewpoints of where the judges were closed off to drivers and teams. I think Calder Park, you weren't supposed to be up in the tower just for noise sort of reasons, but you could be down in front along the wall in front of there. But my spotter was down in that area, but a lot of other people didn't put spotters in that position. They sort of left them over sort of closer to the pit area, which I think is sometimes people's downfall. Mount Gambier was great last year, where you guys were sort of sitting on that under that tree, yep, close to the pit, so everybody could just sort of walk up yep, there and get right in there. Simmons Plain's really similar. It's a little bit further away from the pits, but you could walk right around behind you guys. Archie was a little bit harder, but you guys were screaming out for people to come out and have a look, and
Yeah.
the number of people who didn't come out and have a look was a little bit disappointing, and you could see the guys who actually came out and spoke to you guys had an advantage, really did have an advantage all weekend, even though the rain did play havoc on the actual last round of Drift Australia before Cash Kings.
It was insane rain. Yeah, it was. I really wish it didn't rain.
Yeah, my car's still feeling the effects, and I think Luke's pockets, when it comes to the track, are still feeling the effects of that weekend. So, as far as I'm aware, there has been some changes in the judging stand. I'm not sure we're allowed to say exactly what's happened.
For Mount Gambier,
yeah,
I think you know more than I do, actually.
So, Mitch Slick Sanders, not Sydney Mitch Sanders, but the real Mitch Sanders, is stepping away from his role as a judge and jumping up into the commentator's box, which I think he did both really well last year. I think whenever he wasn't judging, he was pretty much on the mic at every event. I can still remember hearing his voice coming over the crest at Mount Gambier, and I know he was on...
He has a very loud and booming voice, and that's why he does the briefings as well, because his voice carries really well. I've been told I'm way too quiet, and if I talk any louder, it just sounds funny. Well, I think I sound funny. I'm not sure, but it sounds sounds weird. So I'll just let Mitch do all the talking.
Yeah, and considering most of the time we're on outdoor areas because the tracks don't necessarily have the facilities for indoor drivers briefings, and sometimes it's better to be able to actually visualize the track rather than looking at the whiteboard. So Mitch has jumped up into that position. We also lost Marky. So for the last round last year, we had, I guess everybody's calling him Irish. I'm not sure his background. You might have more information than me on him.
I'm not sure. I did meet him last year. I can't actually remember his name.
I'm pretty sure it's Thomas.
Everyone just called him Irish, and that's what's stuck in my mind, and that's it. Now
I feel really rude.
Yeah, it's that point where you get introduced, you say one name, but then the name you repeat is Irish rather than anything else. So that's all I remember is Irish.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Thomas. I think he was a driver and may have competed in the IDC at some stage, whether it be in the pro level or the pro-am level. From what I've seen on Facebook, I think he's potentially done some of that before. I think he's now relocated and he's a Victorian local as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, he moves around quite a bit. So I think that's more what stuck to my mind was he used to drift back at home, and then he moved overseas somewhere else, and I think it was Canada, and he's come to Australia, and he's just sort of getting set up here. I think he bought a car in Queensland a few weeks ago. Oh, no, last year. No, it was last year he bought a car, and then he's taken it back to Melbourne just recently. So
yeah, price is definitely much better up there than we get further down south.
I know. Kind of having internet issues, I think. So it might sound like there's a bit of lag on Greg's end.
Bloody Greg. And then, so
sorry,
does that mean? So are you Does that mean you're taking over the head judge's role?
I'm not exactly sure how it works.
Or DCA doesn't have a necessarily a head judge's role. You're all sort of.
No, we do have a head judge. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I'm not sure the third judge has been announced just yet.
I don't think it has. No. So
I'm not sure we're allowed to.
We're still waiting for announcement.
Yeah, they are somebody who has judged in the past. It's not somebody who's coming in and just somebody random off the street. And they have judged in the really recent history, not necessarily of DCA. So it should be exciting to have him on board as well. He is, I think, one of really similar to EG and sort of just pure love for drift. So not too many biased opinions on things.
I think he is. I think he'll be harder on his mates. I have a feeling.
Yeah, that hopefully I don't count as a friend. So uh,
Oh,
hopefully
you
that
know
pays
him?
enough.
Do you know him?
I might know him. I know his name. So we will see, and hopefully, I'm sure that it's potentially just been a look over the top by Luke to announce who his judging team is for the year, considering they have announced that Mitch is stepping out of the role there. The series has also lost Michael Solomon. Am I pronouncing it correctly?
Yeah, we just call him Sol.
Um,
So he has
I met.
work commitments that he's sort of said that. Yeah. Anyway, that he has work
What
commitments.
Yeah, I only got to meet him last year, and I know he's a stronghold in South Australian drifting, and I got to have a few chats with him, and he's very passionate about it all. But
Yeah,
I didn't.
he is. He
Yeah,
is
I did.
super passionate.
So I didn't get to. Sorry, I just got a message from Luke. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to make it public what he just said to me. But yeah, so what was his role and his involvement in DCA over
Oh
the
no.
years? I think he was one of the big guys in getting it all established with Luke, if I
Yep.
understand from the internet correctly.
Yeah. He was key in helping Luke out to get DCA started. Um, I'm not sure. Yeah, I really don't know. He helped Luke out a lot. Like he was Luke's right hand man, I think you'd call it, second in charge.
Yeah,
Yeah. So without Sol, some of the things, some of the rounds wouldn't have happened because, yeah, different reasons. Because Luke had a baby during the time DCA has been around. I think even the first round,
first
Scarlett.
Talon mainly.
No, it was no, the first round at Rayleigh, the very first DCA round, Scarlett was just a baby, and Sol was a very, very big part in running DCA. Um, I'm kind of
So
interested to know what you guys
yeah,
are talking
yeah. Well,
about.
well, it is Wednesday now, and Luke's gonna make the post at 8 p.m. Oh, I guess he's in Queensland, so it is only 7:40 something there now.
Yeah.
So I can say it because by the time we release this, this will be out. The top three guys of the DCA series will be getting invites to World Time Attack Challenge. It has been locked in and guaranteed that top three will be invited to that as long as their cars meet specs and all that sort of stuff for World Time Attack Challenge drifting.
Okay.
So I think that's actually
I
pretty.
completely forgot about that.
Yeah, I think that's actually pretty big news considering the amount of uh, effort a lot of people go to try and petition their way into World Time Attack Challenge, and I think it's great that Luke's managed to score that relationship with Ian to get those guys in, and I think that's a massive step forward for the Drift Challenge Australia series to have that. A lot of people seem to look down upon the series as the missile series, and you can't go anywhere with it yet. It's the only series. Jesus, I would say it's the only series in the Southern Hemisphere that sends you on a paid drive overseas if you win it or come second. And now the biggest drift event, or I would say probably biggest drift event in the Southern Hemisphere each year. Now with all the New Zealand guys coming over, Pukekohe is a pretty big one over there in New Zealand as their last round. But yeah, this World Time Attack Challenge pulls everybody out of the woodwork. If they even have a remote liking of cars, they show up to this event and sort of stick around for the drifting at the end. So you sort of get your biggest market. So
Yep.
wow, that's big news, and I guess that gives me some rethinking to do about where I'm standing after Mount Gambier, and
I
if I put my current boat to Tassie.
I
I,
think you should do Tassie, but I think if you really wanted to, you could get into World Time Attack
yeah, we'll see what
because
happens this
Blake
year.
got in last year, so you should be able to get in.
Yeah, but Blake's a better driver. His car's more reliable. The driver's not more reliable, but the car's more reliable. But it,
Blake's got to
Blake
listen
is
to
like,
this, he listens to a lot of stuff.
yeah, no, it's good. So I can say it. Blake's like a 450 kilowatt SR20. When it works, it works.
Yeah.
When it doesn't work, it ends catastrophically.
Okay.
That's Blake, but I think that's what makes him cool.
Yeah, his driving is insane. Like sometimes haven't written very much details about what Blake's done in the notes I have with his battle, except that he's just done some sort of insane chase run. Like I don't normally. So I think there's very few people that would be very similar to the way he chases in Australia.
Yeah, he gets right in up underneath people, and he just seems to have this natural ability and feel for it that I think most of us would be extremely jealous of if only we could get.
Yeah, because he just says, he just throws it. He goes like, oh, I don't know, I just need to be over there, so I just throw the wheel and that's it.
Yeah. So, yeah, if World Time Attack happens for me this year, it happens for me this year. I've got a few other things to work out before I get there, and whether or not that sort of entry fee and my car is ready for that event. I need to do a whole lot more third and fourth gear practice before I go and do an event like that. I'm a second gear warrior. Welcome to Sydney, boys. So, yeah, that's big news for the series. Luke's also seems to be working on a whole bunch of other prizes and locking in prize money and things like that for the season. Body kits will probably go a long way with that sort of sponsorship for the series. Yeah, I'm not sure what else there is going on with those guys. I think the culture is entrenched, and it's just a matter of trying to get more guys to come down. As I said before Luke messaged, that there seems to be this. I guess it's from the first couple of events where it has always been a driver's event, but people just showed up in whatever car that they could piece together for the first few events, and that sort of started to give the series a little bit of a reputation.
Yeah.
And then...
Yeah, I know Luke's been trying to change it a little bit. It's not so much that he's being strict, but he's just trying to educate people how you can progress. So if you just keep going around in beaters and doing well, then yeah, that's good and fine. But eventually, you're going to need to go somewhere, and you can't progress unless you make a car that looks serious and you can actually progress into other things, because he's been there, so he knows exactly what people need, and all he's trying to do is just trying to educate you to drive better, to present yourself better, so then you can promote the sport and just keep it growing.
Yeah, and I don't think it's necessarily even just promote the sport. I think people are expecting sponsors to just sort of land in their lap. But if you're driving in a car with no headlights, no bonnet, 3 of your 4 guards missing, of course, you're not going to necessarily pick up a corporate sponsor or anything like that. Your mates might think it's sick, but I'm sure from a corporate point of view, most people don't necessarily want to see that. I think it also starts to make it hard for the series to justify going to tracks when, if they're to look it up online, it's sort of, and see a car totally beaten to shit, it's going to be hard for somewhere like a Phillip Island, if they were even half considering letting drifting, to be like, that's not allowed on our track, or a Sydney Motorsport Park or something. They're just going to instantly be like, well, if that's the amount of respect you have for your car, I can't imagine the amount of respect you have.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You actually have for the track itself. In saying that, like, some of your cars are a bit rough, but still
we take so much effort. Like, you have no idea how much effort goes into keeping the cars the way they are.
but always a full body kit. Always headlights, always tail lights, unless you've hit something at an event. But I don't think I've ever seen you guys show up with those sort of things missing. And I think that was sort of the big push towards some of those sort of cleaning up that image of it. Yeah. I guess one of the other major differences between Drift Challenge Australia to current and previous national series / pro level series is the tyre rule that the DCA has in place compared to other series that allow semi-slicks and, well, I guess, high-performance road tyres, soft compound tyres, and using that as a leveler in the series, I guess. How do you see that from sort of even but like even from the judging point of view, from where you've watched
good, yeah,
where you've watched other series compared to say a DCA event, when it like, and I guess if you do it to a comparable track, say when DCA used to run out at Taylor on the old test track out there, or down in Tassie that is, a more open high speed entry and things like that, because people don't like to compare things like Archerfield to something like Winton, because on semis or on streeters it's not going to be hugely fast, but at some of those tracks you end up with a big speed difference.
Yeah, you can, especially the high speed tracks is a very big difference in speed when it comes to semis. But I think the biggest advantage is that it levels the playing field in terms of how much money needs to be spent to be competitive. So it's more about driver skill. So it's almost like the cars are equal. Is that how you say it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that way it comes down to skill rather than how big your wallet is. And
yeah,
that's the whole point of DCA is it's meant to be a driver's competition, not a budget competition, I guess.
Yeah, and I guess there's no way any series in Australia can go to the lengths that, say, a Formula Drift has gone to in the last few years, such as FD X-raying cars, because after they put in some weight to tyre classes, they started suspecting people putting lead weights in their chassis rails and things like that to try and bring the centre of weight closer to the road, which was justifiable when they could spin a bigger tyre. But that was down there. But no series in Australia is at this stage is going to be able to do something like that. So I guess the easiest way is, hey, go as crazy as you want with the car, within reason. But we're going to bring you back. We're going to bring you back to earth with this tyre rule.
Yeah. Well, most of the time, the rules are pretty much what the level. The rules reflect the level that Australia is ready to have. So there's no reason in building like a $1 million drift car. We're just not at that level yet. You won't have anyone to compete with, or you'd have very few people to compete with. It'd just be one-sided almost. So it's just it's not. It doesn't help anyone. So it doesn't help develop skill. It just puts people off. It doesn't help up and coming drivers to actually enter, because they think, oh, I need to get $1 million car, which is it's not possible. So your car's pretty crazy though.
Yeah, I fell into the Sydney Pro Level Drift trap, and so I've tried to dial it back. Not too much, because then it cost me more money to dial it back, but I've tried to dial it back a little bit now, because you start to hit those unreliability things. And I think that's where the tyre rule for me has made a big difference. I feel like I can get still plenty of speed out of a 235 street tyre, but again, when the car's so highly strung, to try and know that it's there ready to spin 265 semis, or I think there's potential that High Tech was looking at and may still be looking at running a more open tyre rule with just a width restriction and it being treaded. So that to me it starts to get a bit scary. I don't think the tyres are a huge cost compared to a good pair of street tyres, and one of your cheap Chinese semis aren't that far apart in price. But considering I can do Mount Gambier on 3 days of full driving on 6 tyres, and a pair of semis there, even though it's a fairly easy track, would probably be gone within half a day. And if you're on some of your bigger tracks, a pair of semis is gone after a lap and a half for most guys. So I think that's also where the cost starts to creep in, is just the amount of consumption as opposed to the actual cost per unit. I think that's where it starts to come in. And I disagree with you in some ways about people building $1 million cars, but I think I think if you want to build $1 million car, you should be happy to build $1 million car, because some people just like having cool things. Like there's no reason to have a full carbon fiber yacht to race from Sydney to Hobart, but it's cool to have.
Yeah.
So if you're somebody who can accept, I just want that because it's cool to have, go for it. It's cool to have.
That's fine.
When these guys like the Finks are putting a lot of money on the line to run events, you've got to please the masses, and you've got to try and get the masses in there to start with. And I think that's where we've got to sort of take that step back for a little while and build ourselves back towards having 32 cars that can get corporate backing and pay for their semis and, run their 800 horsepower cars with sequential boxes and winners quick changes and all that sort of crazy things. A lot of the stuff, I guess, is cheap. Like, I get a lot of crap for my Wisefab, but Wisefab now off the shelf is comparable to any other lock kit now. When it first came out, it's cheaper than Stewie stuff.
Yeah, but how much is Wisefab now?
I think around the 1,800 to $2,000 mark for the full kit. That's everything though.
What does that consist of?
That's your upper hat for your struts to relocate the strut out. That's your lower control arm, your knuckle, your offset spacers, and your tie rods. So that's a full bolting kit. And I think even when I priced it up alongside GK Tech and all that those sort of companies, it's only a little bit more expensive for something that has been running in a pro level series. So I think that's why there's been a big move towards that sort of thing. So I think those sort of parts on basic builds now aren't so out of reach of people, but things like your 600 kilowatt 2Js and all that are still well outside what people should be chasing. And I know what your point's going to be, that people shouldn't be using that sort of thing to practice on, and I completely agree with that. Take it back to basics to practice, and then have that there when you need it, as opposed to becoming reliant on it.
Yeah, well, yeah, just getting back to your point about cars, like you can build whatever car you want, but it's more the point that you shouldn't give the image that that's a car you have to have to be able to compete. So
yeah,
it's
sure.
not. Anyway, so that sort of thing.
But I guess it's similar to World Time Attack Challenge last year. Somewhere like Luke coming out in a little bit more. I guess it was a crazy AE86 for being an AE86, but it was still an AE86 with an SR20 making somewhere in the 200 kilowatt range that he's put big semis on, or the biggest semis you can fit on a small car like that, and gone and handed it to guys. Yeah, and laid it on their door against guys in massive budget cars that are factory backed by manufacturers and all that, all that jazz.
Yeah.
So I guess having guys like that in any pro series is good for those series to be able to bring more through. But I guess herein lies the other issue with some of those things, is everybody wants to enter a series and feel like they can be number one the first time they go out there, and if they can't be number one, then it's easier to stay at home and use these to go drifting instead.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the other things. I think for me, I had done a season of high tech before I went to DCA, and high tech was good. It was, go out on a Saturday night down to Sydney Motorsport Park and just be able to pump out a round within a few hours and go home. As much as entry fees were high and sort of buying semis and all that was high, it was all done and dusted fairly quickly. You weren't paying for your accommodation and too much fuel and all that sort of stuff. But that becomes your expectation of what competition means. And then you go down to a DCA event, and Mount Gambier 3 days, man, my back was trash. My arms were trash. I was exhausted by the end of it because I got to do so many laps. And then you start to realize, hey, like, this is really fun. And yes, I still got that competitive buzz from the competition side of things, but then you get to do crazy things like, I don't know how many car trains that we had going there, but it was to the point where pretty much the length of the track was full of cars. But then with that choke point right at the end, I think a few guys were almost having, we're sort of entering over, we're sort of entering over the crest, coming over the crest, and then we're like, oh crap, I've got to stop drifting now because the slowdown point, choke point had sort of stopped the whole train going, and that's how crazy things were.
Yeah, I've been through there when it's been absolutely insane, and there's been a car stopped on the right and a car stopped on the left, and I just sort of weaved through the middle of it. That was fun. It looked like it was out of like one of those crash scenes when in a street course in like F1 or something like that, where it's just like two cars through the smoke.
Yeah.
But anyway, what were we originally talking about?
We were talking about DCA, so we were still on DCA.
Okay, all right.
We were still on DCA. We're still on DCA.
Okay. I just
so
kind of forgot what the point was.
Yeah, we're just talking about the sort of restrictions within DCA to keep the series tight.
Yeah, yep.
And I guess it leads into the point of back to us saying about Luke managing to score the international drives, and now with the driver at World Time Attack Challenge is people are chasing. Everybody wants to be in D1 or in Formula D, and feels like that they need to be starting in a Formula D car or in a D1 car. It's sort of like thinking that, hey, I want to be in F1 one day, so I'm going to start driving an F1. I'm going to start driving.
That's a good analogy.
I'm going to start driving an F1 car instead of starting in go-karts. Like just day dot, I'm 6 years old, Formula One car, because I want to be in Formula One, so I have to have Formula One car. And I think that's where a lot of us sort of take drifting a little bit too crazy to start with. Yeah, we all want to have the best of the best, but I guess Formula One is so far out of reach of most people that you sort of look at it and you laugh and you're like, I'd like to do that one day, but I can't just build one of those. Where a high crazy pro drift car is a more realistic build, and I think that's the trap some people get caught up in potentially.
Yeah, I think I agree. I really like that analogy. I'm going to use it next time, actually. F1 car straight away.
Yeah, but that's it. That's where people go. But I guess also is depending on where you are, and I guess we're highly exposed to the New South Wales scene now. But with a lack of track time, and you want to play with your drift car instead of driving, you spend money on it, right? To keep that.
Yeah. There's people there because instead of being able to drive, all they can do is modify their car because the track time is a lot more limited here, or it seems more limited here than anywhere else. But those other states have more. It seems like more competitions, and the tracks are more easier. They're easier to access. Especially with Taylor's coming up. So,
well, yeah, it seems like most of the South Australian drift scene doesn't drive at the moment. They're just waiting for that track to be built and leaving cars in garages. That's what I heard last year, and that's what it seems to continue to be. And I think that track's still a little bit of a way off when it comes to the actual that stadium park or what stadium circuit, whatever it's called, their little purpose-built track.
Yeah,
so
I'm not sure what it's called either.
So that's, I guess, but they've also got the fact that they've got JDMX Park just up the road, and it seems like Malala has practice nights every so often, probably once or twice a month. So they seem to get a good availability. So I think that's why they've got good cars, but they don't have spastic retarded cars.
No, there's a big range actually from what I've seen. Big range of cars. You get cars like what Simon practices in. Simon, if he does practice still. Actually, I haven't seen him around, but he had the 33. That was his practice car, the silver 33. That was pretty cool. And the cars like what Kale has, and Stewie's practice car. So they're not the prettiest, but they're very functional.
Yeah, and I think that's the sort of culture that DCA is still trying to breed back into Australian drifting after the Drift Australia and ADGP and High Tech Days to try and get back to that.
High Tech Days are still around.
Well, High Tech Days were gone and now they're back again.
Yeah.
sort of breathe that life back into drifting, back to basics. Then when it's time for it to flourish, then it's time for it to flourish again. And I think that's the direction that's taking. And Jesus Christ, drifting's been overtaken by burnouts as Australia's fastest growing motorsport, and like that's just not acceptable in my eyes, to be overtaken by burnouts. Like, yes,
I have respect for burnouts, actually.
For sure. Like, I think there's a huge amount of skill level in what they do.
If they're talking about like proper burnout comps, I think.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
not guys doing sit stills at the intersection on Parramatta Road or something like that.
Yeah.
I'm talking like big tip-ins like summer nats and all that sort of stuff. But again, if I'm wanting a constant thrill that I can do more than once or twice in a weekend, because I think they only get a handful of runs and only a handful of runs before the car starts to get hurt, I'd rather go drifting, go throw the car into a corner at 100 and something k an hour a bunch of times, and it not cost me a motor every time I go out and hit a run, or that I've set the back of the car on fire or something like that. So I think there's a lot to be said on a culture change within the sport to get it back to being number one with its growth and more publicly acceptable. But I think that's a topic that we can cover on a different day.
Yeah. That'll be a long episode, won't it?
I think that would be, and I think we also need to get a couple of other people who love their drifting in on that one, because I think it's a topic that not only a couple of people should be involved in. I think that's definitely going to be a long discussion, and I think it'd just be interesting to get a few different people's ideas on what they think needs to change and where the sport can go. And I think that's the only way that as a sport we can progress. But I think back to basics for a little while is probably what's best. But I know a lot of people are going to watch this and be like, shut up, idiot, on the internet.
Probably.
You've got no idea.
But talking about that, I think we're around the 1 hour mark now.
Yeah. I think that's a good first episode. If you have any ideas or any topics you sort of want us to do some research into and bring up, please let us know. We're sort of open to ideas. We sort of have a rough idea on some things we'd like to move forward with. We'd like to do some event wraps for events that we've been to or been able to sort of spectate. We are going to start a Facebook page, an Instagram page, a Twitter page, a YouTube channel.
Oh my God, that's going to be a lot of work. All right, yeah, well, let's do it.
And yeah, look, at Mount Gambier, my plan is to try and grab a few drivers and do one-on-one, just 10, 15-minute one-on-one interviews, just chat about your car, chat about yourself, and throw that up on our social media platform and put that out there. That we're using it so that you guys can grow from our reach and we can grow from your reach. At this stage, we don't have any reach, so. But so do most of the guys. I know a lot of guys have paid for reach, so hopefully this can be a more organic way of us getting drifting back out there and people understanding. I think people are more excited when they know the story behind something than when it's just happening. Like, nobody's going to watch V8 Supercars if you never know the name of the driver and you never know their character or anything like that, because it's a bit hard to say so and so is a bit of a, an F whatever, because you don't know who he is. If everybody was just the Stig, it wouldn't be very exciting. But once you sort of know the background and who doesn't like who, and whose car's cool and who's on a budget and all that sort of stuff, it becomes a little bit, I think it becomes more real. And I think it being real is what makes it exciting. So this is what I think this is what our vision with this is, to become a little bit more of a platform for that and sort of use those neglected parts of the drift community that we haven't been able to use previously.
Yeah, and I'll try and talk a bit more because I know Greg does most of the talking.
But everybody's going to say that's what I normally do anyway. But
yeah.
We're going to get EG more comfortable in front of the camera, and I will try not to talk.
Screwing up again. So yeah.
Is that? All right, well,
yeah. Anyway, yeah, I'll try and talk more. This will be good practice for me anyway, and I'm hoping that it'll actually get better and better.
So I will see you in Mount Gambier or in our next stream, hopefully in our next stream anyway. We're going to try and do this high five thing. We did a rehearsal, but I'm not sure we're going to be able to.
Where is it?
Am I there?
No.
Am I there?
Wait, we don't have the noise again.
Yeah, that's all right.
It's all right. Okay. So.
Am I there?
Your elbow needs to be a bit closer to the wall. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Ready?
3, 2, 1. I don't know. I don't know who lagged. But...
No, it worked. Kind of. You won't be too far, so that's right.
All right. So we will catch you guys in the next episode. Please let us know what you think. Share this if you can. Put it out there. And yeah, if you want to get in contact with myself or EG directly through Facebook, Instagram, whatever, we'll have links to that sort of stuff there. Or contact the pages once they're sort of up if you would like to be part of an interview. For some of you guys who are out of state, if you can do a little part and you're not comfortable with putting up on your own social media stuff, depending on the quality and how much swearing there is, we will be happy to look at it and potentially throw it up on our stuff too.
Yeah, so Greg's really good at doing interviews, actually.
So stay tuned.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, EG.
Thank you.